My name is Camille Bouknight. I am the Director of Admission, but I am not here by myself, so I'm going to allow my colleagues, both in the admission office as well as in our Office of International Student Affairs office, to introduce themselves at this time. Rafael.
Good morning, Camille. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon and evening. Really happy that you're here with us today. My name is Rafael Trujillo. I'm an Emerson alum and also an international admission officer at Emerson. So I work with students in Mexico, Central America, and South America. So really happy that you're here to help you answer all your questions about the visa process. But as Camille said, I'm not the only one, also joined by our wonderful colleagues in the Office of International Student Affairs. So Jen, if you want to go next, and then we'll go to KK and then Andrea.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Racinos, and I'm the Associate Director of International Recruitment and Admissions, and I cover India and Southeast Asia, as well as Canada. Happy to be here.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is KK Lee. I'm the International Student Advisor at International Student Office. I primarily work with undergrad students, so when we get onto campus, you'll see me a lot. I'm so excited for you all to join us, and welcome.
Yes, hello, and I'm Andrea Popa. I am the Director of the Office of International Student Affairs. So I work alongside KK as well as a couple other folks that we'll introduce to provide visa support and English language support. We will meet you at orientation, and we will also be hosting a virtual open house later in the summer so that you can meet the rest of our staff.
Fantastic. Thank you all. All right, so let's jump right in. So for today's conversation, we are going to be discussing the way that you apply for your I-20, getting your F1 visa. Of course, once you get your visa, how do you maintain your F1 status? We want to make sure that when you are about to leave, you know all the steps that you need to take to come to Emerson. And then, of course, we'll finalize this session with some additional questions at the end. So I will pass this on to Rafael.
Oh. So let's start at the beginning. Most of these documents, you're going to find that in your application portal. So where you see all the documents that you need to submit after you submit your deposit, you're going to see at the bottom on your screen the International Student Checklist. And in there, you're going to see all the documents that are going to be necessary before we can give you an I-20. So the first one is going to be a copy of your passport, the official back document, the letter of financial support, and your international student contact form. And we're going to go by each of them so you understand a little bit better the documents that we're speaking about. Next slide, please. So the bank document, this is a really important document that is required to showcase that you have the currency to afford your education in the United States. There's a couple of caveats that you have to include in this letter. We have a sample on the portal as well, which is the one that you're seeing on the screen right now, but you can see this same sample and you can download it. So you can have a template of what you need to show. One of the main things is that the assets have to be liquids. So we're speaking about a checking or a savings account. It needs to include the specific amount that we're speaking about. So as you saw on the previous slide, for this year's 80,000 with $91, but some of you might have received a scholarship, so you can subtract that scholarship from this amount. For example, if you got a $15,000 scholarship, it will be $80,091 minus $15,000. So pretty much what you need to show is $65,000 with $91 on this letter. Just so you're clear. So keep that in mind in case you have received a scholarship. And this needs to be shown on the account. Now, it cannot be an average. It has to be the exact amount. If it's over the number, that's completely fine, but it needs to show exactly an amount. So please keep this in mind when you're submitting this back document. It has to be in English and it has to be dated within the last 6 months. So right now we are in May of 2024. So the latest that it could go back is the end of November, right? But anywhere from, let's say, December forward, you should be in a pretty good spot. If you have a certificate of deposit, it has to be a maturity date of at least August 1st, which means that you will have access to that money by August 1st. So please keep that in mind when you're submitting this document. If not, you will get it back and you will need to submit it again. And we don't want you to delay the process of getting your I-20. Next slide, please. The letter of financial support is having a letter of who's going to be the sponsor, who's going to be supporting you throughout your education at Emerson. So it's pretty straightforward. Is your name and the name of the person who's going to be sponsoring you and their relationship with you. That person will sign and date the form. If there's any confusions, there's 2 check boxes. For most of you who are not doing the global BFA program, it's going to be the first box. The second box is reserved for students who are going to be participating in the global BFA program. So keep that in mind when you're checking the boxes and then submit that. Just in case if you're being sponsored either by a company because your parents own a company or a family member owns a company, if the company is the one who's going to do the sponsorship, then we do require a specific letter from that company showing the relationship of that person, of the company who's going to be sponsoring you and the role within that company. So whether it be they're the CEO, the CFO, anything of that sort, but it has to be an official letterhead from the company and it has to be signed. But you also will need to submit this letter alongside that additional letter. So keep that in mind if you're being sponsored by a company. That's an additional document. Otherwise, with this form, you should be all set. Next slide, please. The international contact form is more generic. So in this form, it's going to be more your personal information, where you were born, citizenship, all of those things. So it's things that you can fill out on your own. This is probably the one that you should start with because it's the simplest to complete. And then you can go throughout all different ones to fill out the rest of the forms. And please make sure you complete no later than June 15. Once again, this is just for your peace of mind, so you can obtain that I-20 and then go ahead and proceed with the rest of the process. Next slide, please. For the passport copy, make sure that is the main page where you have all your information is at least has 6 months of validity, and it shows all your information clear as well. So that's the first page of your passport copy, so we can have access to that. Next slide. And then some of you might already be in the United States as an international student, might already gone through this process a few times, and now it's about transferring your current information to Emerson. If that's your case, you're going to see all the prior documents showcased on your portal, plus the ones that you can see now in the screen. So one important aspect of this one is the transfer process. Some of you might end school a little bit later, so you need to maintain the status and it might not be transferred yet, but start working with your DSO or the person that is assigned at your current institution so they can fill out the form and then they can send it back to us. In that way, later your record can be transferred to us and we can have a purview of all those documents. But it's the same process. You just need to complete it throughout the portal, download the form, and work with the person designated at your current institution. And now I'll pass it along to our colleagues in the Office of International Student Affairs.
Yeah, thank you, Rafael. So the next step that you're going to do is to obtain the visa that's going to give you permission to travel to the US. So sometimes there's a little bit of confusion between the difference between an I-20 and the visa itself. Then what we talk about as status, and we'll explain the difference there. But the certificate of eligibility that you receive from Emerson College is what makes you eligible to apply for a student visa. The student visa in our office, we often call it a key to the door. So it's the stamp in your passport that's going to allow you to enter the US. So you apply for a US visa at a US consulate abroad. So for some of you, that may be an embassy, it may be a consulate, and generally your very first time applying, you're actually applying for an in-person visa. This does, it does depend a little bit from country to country and from post to post or consulate to consulate, but the general application steps are as follows. Once you get that CVIS I-20 from Emerson College, then you're going to pay a CVIS fee. What is CVIS? CVIS is the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System. It's basically the system that we use to create I-20s, and it's run by US Department of Homeland Security. So this fee does not go to Emerson College. It is actually paid to Homeland Security as a means for supporting international students and tracking international students during your stay in the US. So there's a $350 fee. This is a one-time fee that you will pay for the length of your program. And then you will also be applying to the consulate. So there'll also be a fee that you pay when you complete your visa application. That fee goes to a different government agency. That one goes to the Department of State. And so when you're applying online for you're filling out what's called the Form DS-160. This is the application, the online application for a non-immigrant visa. As part of that, you are going to upload a photo of yourself, and you're also going to schedule your interview on a date that's convenient for you. Sometimes people are wondering, how long will it take me to schedule a visa appointment? If you go online to something called the visa wait time, it should give you a pretty good idea of how long it might take for you to schedule a visa appointment in one city versus another. Sometimes if there's multiple consulates that are closer to you, we do suggest that you go to the consulate that is closest to your home, the one that is in your home country. That's typically recommended. But if you see that there's a large difference between a consulate close to you and another one, you may wish to make a decision to apply in another place to keep that wait time a little lower. We've seen a lot of delays and slow visa processing over the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. As you can imagine, we're very pleased to say that visa wait times have picked up in most countries. Camille, are you seeing, or Rafael, are you seeing any particular countries where the visa wait time is still pretty long?
Not at this point. I think right now everything is still moving pretty smoothly as of at least the past 5-6 months. So we anticipate that sort of persistence to continue.
That's great. So just to give you a sense, I'm dropping in the link. That's where you would find the visa wait time for your consulate. So these are the main things on your checklist for applying for your visa. Next slide, please. So preparing for the interview, it's called a visa interview, but that's kind of, that term itself is probably a little bit confusing. Essentially what you're doing is standing in line, and you may have 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes at a window. And the consulate or the consular officer will probably have already reviewed much of your application before they call you up to the window. And they may just ask you 1 or 2 or 3 questions that confirm what they already believe to be true. And so essentially at the interview, they are very quickly determining whether they believe you have all the credentials for you to be an F1 student. They believe you are academically qualified for the program that you've applied for. They're very quickly assessing your English ability, whether you're understanding the questions that they're presenting to you. They're also evaluating quite quickly whether they believe you to have the financial resources to be here without unlawful employment in the US. And perhaps the overall question that they're assessing or determining is whether they believe that you are here for a short-term period of time. So the last bullet that I put here is called demonstrating non-immigrant intent. Non-immigrant intent means that your intention here is not as agreeing to immigrate, but to be here for a short-term stay, 2 to 3 years, 4 years as a student, and that your intention afterwards is to presume home. So the word, the reading or the term that's used in guidelines is that you must demonstrate strong ties to your home abroad that you don't intend to abandon. So essentially, if they ask you, what are you thinking of doing after graduation? They are not being conversational. They're essentially trying to figure out if you're going to say something along the lines, I intend to come home to work in my family business, or I'm never coming back. So if you say something like, I'm never coming back, that is the most common reason for an F1 visa to be denied. So be aware of this philosophy as you're having that short conversation, because it's a very quick assessment of your ability to get that visa. What are you going to bring? One of our key tips is to be as well prepared for the visa interview as you can. You're going to bring your unexpired passport. The passport should be valid well into the future. If your passport is valid any less than a year, it's really recommended that you be applying for an extension before you get your visa. You're going to print out the confirmation page that you have filed the DS-160 non-immigrant visa application. You're going to print out the receipt for your SEVIS fee payment. You're going to bring copies of passport photo. Is this still correct if they're uploading? Still copies of your approved photo. So this should be a recently taken photo in the style of a US passport, which is different than other global passports. So in the US, we're looking at a 2-inch by 2-inch passport, white background, no glasses, no hat. There are some possibilities. If you wear a head covering for religious reasons, there's a way that you can appeal, but for most folks, no glasses, no hat in that picture, that's 51 by 51 millimeters squared. So if you look up US passport pictures, there's clear standards for what that passport picture should be. You're going to bring your acceptance letter to Emerson College. That shows that you have been vetted by us and you have been approved for admission here at Emerson. And you're also going to bring a copy of those financial documents that Raphael was speaking about that demonstrate that you have the ability to be here financially. So that's the general information that you need to prepare for your visa interview. I do recommend that you also look on the website for the consulate that you are applying, because there are some instances where one consulate may have a slightly different information than another. For instance, one consulate may require those physical pictures, another one may accept the upload that you already did. So it's always, you don't want to be running home or having to apply for another appointment. So the best recommendation is to be very well prepared your first time around so that you're successful in getting that visa from the start. So these are our tips for preparing for that visa interview. I think my last recommendation for you is to relax, take a breath, present yourself with enthusiasm. This is a wonderful opportunity you have to come to the US and to come to Emerson to study. They want to see that you're genuinely excited about this opportunity. I think the more you can take a breath and radiate that Emerson shine that you are coming to do great work here in your 4 years, that confidence is going to go a long way to just ensuring that the consular officer sees that you are here for academic purposes, that your intention is temporary to finish a degree, and that you're well prepared for this thing that you're applying for your visa for. So those are our tips. I'm going to pass that along to KK. When you arrive in the US, KK really is going to be your first and primary contact person at the Office of International Student Affairs. So as we arrive at this slide, I also wanted to pass it along to her to tell you what life will be like once you arrive on campus. KK, take it away.
Thank you so much, Andrea. So as you getting your first I-20s, you will see a program start date on the I-20. Make sure you enter the US no sooner than 30 days before the program starts. Once you arrive at campus, you should always check in with the visa within the first 15 days of your arrival. You can do that via a platform called Teradata. This is the platform we use to process most of the student requests immigration matters. As you begin your classes here at Emerson, one of the biggest goals you have to remember is to maintain your legal status in the US. So to maintain your status, you also need to take a full course load study in the US. So each term you need to take at least 12 credits minimum. If you would like to work on campus, you have to work no more than 20 hours per week during academic periods, meaning you can work no more than 20 hours during the spring and fall semesters. You can also work over 20 hours per week during breaks, like summer breaks, winter breaks, or spring breaks. You can begin off-campus works such as internships or paid trainings after 1 year of study in the US. We also have a website of all the information you need to know about your status in the US and how to maintain them. Next slide, please. So when you get to Emerson and start your study in the US, one of your most important tasks is to maintain your legal status, as I previously mentioned. So there will be a lot of occasions where you need to meet with us, meet with the OISA advisor before you make any changes to your records or before you begin adding something new to your record. So for example, if you want to begin on-campus employment, you have to meet with us to work on the documents before you can get started. You will also meet with us when you apply for off-campus internships. We will help you to get the work authorization to make sure you're authorized to legally work in the US. You will also need to contact us when you change your major, program, or degree level so we can make the change to reflect on your I-20 record. When you change your education level, for example, if you change from bachelor's to the master's, you will also need to contact us. You will also need to reach us if you wanted to transfer to a new school or take a leave of absence. We will also have checkpoints when you take break from the school and also before you travel outside of the United States. You should also inform us when you move to a new address, so your address will be reflected on your record on time. If you need more time to complete your program, you will need to contact us to request a program extension. So your I-20 will reflect the correct date for you to complete your program. So not only the immigration side of advising, we also give a lot of support to students who need help with academic support and campus resources. If you have a question on anything related to your study or academic life, you could also reach out to us. We can always be your first stop and direct you to different departments and resources to get the support you need. Next slide, please. Communities at Emerson College. So our Office of International Student Affairs provide immigration and campus support services for international students. We do a lot of immigration advising for students on F1 status. We help them to get their work authorization, either working for internships, trainings, or post-completion OPT. That's your work permission after you graduate from Emerson. We also advise on international travel. Thank you. We also advise on international travel matters. So a lot of times you will meet with us to make sure your documents are good to go before you leave. At our office, we also offer English language support. We offer English language learning courses that are tuition-free, and we do a lot of programming around language learning. We also host International Student Pre-Orientation, which is a mandatory program you wanted to join us to prepare you better for the bigger orientation program for all the new students. We promote events and initiatives that reflect Emerson's global voice. such as the International Education Week or the International Mother Languages Week. So we work with a lot of campus departments for a lot of interesting events that you would like to join. Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you all for sharing that helpful information. So as you sort of leave today, we just wanted to pop up some contact information for all general inquiries before you're arriving to Emerson. Physically, you are able to submit those to the admission office, and either myself, Raphael, or Jen will answer those questions according to where it is that you guys are coming from, based on your high school location. For those questions, once you do arrive to Emerson, as KK and Andrea mentioned, you are going to want to connect with the Office of International Student Affairs and the various helpful people across that, including KK, who's probably going to be your main point of contact. Andrea, if you're going to ELA or the Castle, I believe you handle that. And then if anybody does require English language support, you're going to want to meet with Amy. Max does work with graduate students from that office. Of course, if you're continuing on to a +1 year or any of the other graduate programs that Emerson would provide, he would be your main point of contact in that office. We do have some questions, so I can open those up at this point. But I had more. There is some advisement on entering the country 30 days before program of study. Is that a requirement of the visa, or is that just something that you're recommending? Can somebody just come for the international pre-orientation date? So Andrea, if you'd be able to answer that for me, that'd be great.
So the international student pre-orientation, the couple things that we try to do there, the principal thing we're trying to do is connect people. So yes, we do have some information that's specific to visas. We have a session that talks about the F1 visa and the restrictions, the limits, the opportunities in F1 status. But a lot of the 3 days has to do with just meeting other people, getting used to the US environment and the Emerson College environment before all of the students arrive. So we have a lot of students that maybe have a US visa but have grown up abroad, that have a US passport that have grown up abroad that do find the international student orientation to be quite helpful from a social point of view. It's required for people that are in F1 status, and any folks that have lived for a long time abroad are welcome to attend if they choose to.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrea. Raphael, we have a couple questions about if somebody is able to send in multiple bank documents. So can a family send in more than one? Can they send in 2 or 3 different bank documents, as opposed to just the singular one showcasing the total amounts?
Yeah, I mean, I think they just need to be consistent, make sure that the names are showcased, that there is a pattern, so they can show those amounts as long as the amount is proof. And once again, a specific amounts, because if not, those letters will be sent back. So make sure that we have, 40% in one aspect or 40,000, and then the other, 25 and 20 another, it is fine. Just make sure that there is a consistency and that they can be proved. So there's no problem with this for the student or for us to make sure that that is proved. So yeah, it's not a problem.
And also just make sure that you submit those financial support letters for each of those bank documents. So those letters of financial support do need to match the names listed on the bank documents. KK, We have some questions about when you arrive. Can somebody travel to a different city and then later travel to Boston, or do they have to travel directly to Boston?
So they're actually allowed to travel to different cities, but when you enter the country, the CBP, the Customer Border Protection will definitely ask you, what are you traveling for and where are you going? So that's the time where you have to answer, I'm actually going to Boston and Emerson College is my last stop. So yeah, it's okay to travel to another city at first and then come back to Boston.
Thank you so much, KK. We have a question about somebody who has a visa that will be valid until May of 2025. Does that student need to apply for a new visa, or can they just continue on with that visa after they graduate? So Raphael, can you speak a little bit more to the transfer process of what would be required of a student?
Yeah, so given that you currently have status with the F1, you're gonna still have to work all the different processes to submit that transfer to Emerson. So on the system, it shows that you started at your current school, now you're gonna be coming to Emerson, so you go through the whole process. So that's really important. That's gonna be the first step, and that's gonna be showcased on your portal once again. But then in the back end, still you're gonna receive your I-20 from Emerson because you're gonna have that new step on the system. So definitely it's gonna be showcasing there. And then maybe on your second year when you come back home, you can update your visa and have a new standard visa to make sure that you have your visa status. But your status itself in the United States, it will be safe because it'll be updated and you also receive an I-20 from Emerson, given that you're gonna be starting your studies here with us.
Thank you. Andrea, can you answer a little bit more about what happens if a student is offered employment after their studies? Is there a change to the visa status? And is that permitted, seeing as the I-20 is given with the promise of a temporary stay? So maybe if you could talk a little bit more about CPT, OPT, and what that looks like.
Yeah, and I would just say that our office does a lot of advising about careers. We do understand that wanting to work in the US is a key component of your academic preparation. And so a good chunk of what we do in our office is to assist students with employment-based matters. International students have the opportunity to work on campus immediately upon arrival. So in your first year here, you might want to, gain some experience by working a campus job. We'll assist you with the application for that, your US Social Security number, which is required when you get your first US job. So we'll walk you through those steps. Once you have been here in the US for one academic year, you then qualify for a couple types of F1 work permission off campus. The most common is that curricular practical training, we call it CPT, which is if you're doing an internship for academic credit. And at Emerson, we're fortunate that we have several different opportunities to facilitate and support internships. International students can actually take, I believe it's up to 13 credits of internship over their time here. So if you're planning ahead and thinking about going to Emerson LA in your final couple semesters, you would of course want to keep some of your credits, your internship credits for that experience. But there is opportunity for you to take a couple other semesters of internship if you plan ahead. If working in the US is a key component of what you're trying to accomplish during your Emerson time, we definitely would encourage you to be in conversation with your academic advisor to let them know, to meet one of our colleagues, Emmy Bagay, who's the Associate Director for International Student Career Support at the Career Office, along with KK and myself and Max in our office. We do quite a bit of support for those internships. Emmy's office in the Career Development Center assists international students with preparing a U.S. resume, what a U.S. job search looks like, sort of honing in on the types of skills you would need to develop to be a good candidate for your ideal role. So a lot of career preparation are things that we work in quite a bit. International students in F1 status then have 1 year of work permission that you can do off after graduation called optional practical training. This is considered a practical extension of your academic program. So it is for work that's related to your major field. And our office does assist you with that recommendation and that application process that happens about 90 days or 3 months before you graduate is when you would apply for that. We also every semester have an immigration attorney come to campus to talk about what are the U.S. visas that might support continued work if you choose to stay on in another non-immigrant category. So we talked about being careful that both F1 status as well as certain other visas are still temporary, but you could be temporary and be here for, say, 4 years for your degree and maybe another few years to gain some U.S. work permission. Those could still be considered temporary opportunities to stay in the U.S. without immigrating here. So we do discuss the H-1B work visa and other opportunities that students have. They're complex processes and you won't have to sort of be there until you graduate. But we do advise you along the way, along your 4 years, to make sure you have the information you need to be able to apply for those or to be in good position for those when you graduate. I would mention that a lot of the employment in the US is very closely tied to your major. So one of the ways that you can expand opportunities for US work is to consider a double major. So that would happen after you arrive here. So working with academic advising to see whether there's room in your degree to add a second major. That's going to sort of double your work opportunities from an immigration point of view. And perhaps Camille or Rafael can talk about majors you can't double major in or switch into. There are a few of those, but there are a few options where you could pick up a second major after you arrive.
Thank you, Andrea. And Ken, just to expand upon that a little bit more, can you also answer if a social security number is given if somebody is not employed?
Thank you for that question. No, a social security number in the US is only required for tax purposes. That's the reason why it's issued. And so in order for an F1 student to apply for a social security number, they have to show that they have work permission at the time. So you would get a social security number the very first time you get an on-campus job, or when you're authorized for CPT, or when you apply for OPT. So we have students that apply at any of those 3 times, but you cannot apply for an SSN just without a current valid work permission.
Can I also add something to that?
Of course.
So for a lot of times, for a lot of occasions, you don't really need to have a social security number to get a lot of things done. For example, you can open a bank account with your passport. You can also use your passport to open a phone line. A lot of times you can also use your document, your F1 documents and your passport to get your driver's license. So a lot of times a social security number is really not required.
Thank you. That was very helpful. And for those who are thinking about double majoring, you cannot double major if you are a visual media arts student in media arts production, and you are also not able to double major within business of creative enterprises. There are some students from performing arts who will double major, but you do need to work closely with both the department academic advisors as well as your general academic advisor to ensure that you're able to balance those 2 things with that BFA option. There's also our interdisciplinary studies degree. So if there were 2 different areas that you wanted to connect together, either those being liberal arts or through our various major related programs that we're offering, you could do that, and that could also potentially open up some additional opportunities for you. KK. I have a student asking that if it's possible to stay in the dormitories prior to the program beginning. So if somebody's arriving 10 days before the program begins, would it be possible for them to stay in the dormitories?
I believe there's a specific date you have to move in, but I would also recommend you double check with the housing department to make sure you get the right date. I'm gonna put the email address in the chat as well.
Perfect, thank you.
I would say in general, no, because keep in mind that there's summer programs that are online too, and so and conferences that we host on campus. So like if you're allowed to move into the dorms, there's a lot of other support that's necessary. So the first day that you're allowed to move into the dorms is generally what's published for pre-orientation. So if you're trying to come 10 days before or something like that, you would not be able to move into the dorms. The housing office does assist, like if an international student needs to stay a little bit late for, like if your flight is a couple days after the dorms close for winter intersession or for the summer, there's some flexibility, but for very first time students, generally it's not possible to move into the dorms before pre-orientation.
Thank you, Andrea. Raphael, how many credits per semester are required for F1 students?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you have to maintain full-time status, which means usually a semester at Emerson is going to be 4 classes. Each class is 4 credits, so therefore 16 credits. But there might be cases that you can take 3 courses, which is 12 credits, and that's the minimum that you need to maintain full-time status. So something to keep in mind. And this sometimes happens in your senior year, where you have made most of the credits that you need, and instead of having 4 classes, you have 3. So, and as you know, Andrea was speaking earlier, you might be doing, an 8-credit internship, and you might be taking 1 class. And in that way, you can meet your 12 credits during that semester. So at least 3 classes, which is 12 credits, is the minimum needed to maintain full-time status with your F1 visa.
Thank you. Andrea, I have somebody asking if they're going to be able to open a bank account in their student's name if they are under 18 upon arrival. So can you answer to opening bank accounts for minor students?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I wish I knew the answer specifically.
I believe you can.
Okay, thank you, Camille.
Yeah.
So would it need to be a co-signed situation or, okay, all right.
No, so at most banks, Bank of America, Chase, a minor is able to have a bank account in their name. It can be a checking account and a savings account. Most typically, students will have a checking account solely. And you can be, I believe it's 14 or 15 when you first open a bank account in the US, because you just have to be of working age essentially to be able to collect that check. So you should be fine with opening that. And then KK, final question. Can we ship students' personal items in early June to Emerson from another location in the US? She's finishing high school in Maryland, and then we pick them up in August when she comes on August 25th.
I believe the answer is yes. You can ship your stuff early in, and we'll sort your stuff out at once. And then we come here. There's time you can pick it up, and there's also information sent to all the students about early moving, so you will get the information before you arrive.
Thank you so much. And then finally, as just a
Now, if
last,
I could just add, so you will receive information about early shipping. If you if you mail it early enough, it will actually be in your student's dorm when it arrives. So yes, it is possible to ship ahead. This sort of cuts down on all the bags that you need to bring, and follow the instructions that are mailed out to you, because this is a way that you can actually just arrive in your room and already have a lot of your pre-shipped things right there.
also, just as like a final little piece of advice, just a question for me. What advice would you offer all these students as they sort of finish up high school, are getting ready to come to Emerson? What is that piece of advice that you would offer them that might be helpful in their journey coming here? So I'll start with Ralph, go to KK, and then finish out with Andrea.
I mean, yeah, there's way too many. First of all, enjoy the end of high school. Please have fun and the remainder days that you have there with those people you spend the last few years with. I should start preparing. I think for an international student, a student who's coming from abroad, maybe a US citizen or a permanent resident, is to enjoy, to make those connections, right? You bring a really unique perspective and experience. So take advantage of the opportunities like the international student orientation and then moving, because you're gonna meet students from all over the world during those first couple of days. So highly recommend that you move in with them so you can meet them and have fun and make those connections early on, because those might be the people you're gonna be sticking with throughout your 4 years at Emerson, whether they are on your major or not. And they might have similar questions to the one that you have. So that's one piece of advice. The other one is join the different clubs and organizations that we have on campus. The Office of International Student Affairs has great programming for international students. I'll let them speak about that, but definitely connect with those resources. You have a community that is here to support you during your time at Emerson, so please don't ever hesitate to reach out. Always ask for help, and any questions are valid, because when you don't know, you simply don't know. And we have staff who has some of those answers and will be able to help you out. So always ask questions, and we're really happy that you're here, and we're looking forward to hosting you starting August 25th, hopefully.
Yeah, I would just add a little bit on to what Rafael just said. Be prepared for all the opportunities and wonderful connections you're gonna make in Boston, and as well as be prepared for the weather here in Boston. Geared up, and also, yeah, get ready for the winter. It is really important to make sure you take care of your own mental well-being, and always remember we're all here to help.
I'm the mother of a high school senior this year, so I have a daughter who's the same age as you. And so once we do orientation, then I'm also going to be moving her into her own dorms. So maybe you can take that advice from that perspective. But I would say, I think there's a lot of you're coming in so accomplished already. You've done so many things that have gotten you into Emerson. But I would just encourage you to embrace being new again, embrace being freshman. It's not too late to learn a new skill and to do yes, do the things that you have enjoyed doing in high school. But also, I hope that once you arrive in college, that you take a chance on something and that you use it as an opportunity to learn something that you haven't done before. And 4 years is enough time for you to really enjoy a new skill, enjoy a new hobby, enjoy a new knowledge. So take that advantage of turning the new page.